Imagine you've spent decades building a towering industrial empire. You've survived economic downturns, you've navigated insanely volatile markets, and you've built a real legacy. But then, suddenly, you're watching it slowly crumble from the inside out, and you have absolutely zero idea why. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're decoding a crucial organizational development proposal that was specifically designed to rescue and totally transform Pakistan's massive industrial sector.
Let's just jump right in with a massive question. Why are incredibly successful, long-established factories suddenly hitting an invisible wall of stagnation and institutional fatigue? I mean, we aren't talking about fragile little startups here. These are legacy giants. They've got deep pockets, state-of-the-art machinery, vast capital, and literal decades of market dominance. Yet, right behind those factory doors, so many are dealing with a severe, silent breakdown in their daily operations. The engines are definitely running, but the company itself is completely paralyzed.
To figure this out, we're going to navigate this dense proposal through 5 key areas to understand these hidden dynamics and the strategic interventions needed to fix them. We've got the golden triangle crisis, the root of the problem, HR as the nervous system, the transformation roadmap, and finally, making change stick.
So, let's get right into our first section, the Golden Triangle Crisis and the extreme pressures facing Pakistan's industrial belt. Listen, this crisis goes way deeper than a simple economic downturn. What we're actually seeing is a massive systemic breakdown in governance and human capital. We aren't just looking at profit margins shrinking from inflation. It's profound productivity stagnation, and it's fueled by sky-high employee turnover and deeply toxic supervisory cultures. What does that actually look like on a factory floor in Lahore or Faisalabad? Well, it looks like fear-based micromanagement. Supervisors who literally just yell to get results, creating an environment where your high-performing talent simply quits rather than sticking around to endure the abuse. Add in a stubborn resistance to technological upgrades and dangerously weak succession pipelines, and you've got a perfect storm. It's a full-blown leadership crisis threatening the very foundation of these historic industrial hubs. Moving right along to Section 2, diagnosing industrial dysfunction. We really need to pivot from broad structural issues to unpacking the deeply ingrained human and cultural roots of this mess. Here's the absolute crux of the issue. Pakistani organizations frequently and dangerously confuse operational inefficiency with human inefficiency. Think about it like this. If a massive piece of machinery breaks down on the assembly line, management halts production, calls in the engineers, and meticulously fixes the gears, right? But if a team suddenly misses a quarterly target or production slows down, management doesn't look at the system. They just yell at the team. They try to solve structural bottlenecks through immense pressure, hyper-surveillance, or arbitrary firings. They completely ignore the fact that the human system might be fundamentally broken, and instead treat the people as the problem, rather than the broken systems those people are forced to operate within. It all boils down to this reality. Most Pakistani firms prescribe solutions before understanding root causes. You simply can't prescribe a cure without running the diagnostics first. If a doctor recommended aggressive surgery without even doing a basic blood test, we'd call it extreme malpractice. Yet businesses do this every single day. They'll hire cosmetic consultants to run some flashy team-building retreat or print out new mission statements for the lobby, all while the underlying culture is literally bleeding out. This proposal completely rejects that superficial approach. Because if you prescribe a solution without knowing the root cause, you're just slapping a tiny band-aid on a shattered foundation.
Okay, Section 3. This is where we need a total paradigm shift, treating HR as the true nervous system of the company.
And that brings us to Organizational Development, or OD. It's the intentional architecture of systems, roles, routines, decision rights, and culture to align strategy, structure, and people. Let's cut through that academic jargon. Basically, OD is built on the reality that industrial dysfunction is almost never isolated. Problems pop up because of deep structural misalignment. Let's take decision rights as an example. In real life, this means asking, who actually gets to say yes or no on the factory floor without bottlenecking production? If a line manager has to wait 3 full days for the CEO to approve a totally minor equipment repair, the system is broken. OD realizes that you can't just mandate a less toxic culture without actively fixing the way you structure your daily routines and who has actual authority.
Which leads to this game-changing concept. HR is the institutional nervous system of organizational transformation. Look, for decades, human resources has been treated as this purely administrative department. The people who process payroll, handle labor compliance, maybe manage your leave requests. But this proposal demands a massive shift, putting HR at the absolute core of the business strategy. Think about your own body's nervous system. If you accidentally touch a hot stove, your nerves instantly tell you to pull your hand back before serious damage is done. A modern HR system should function the exact same way for a company. It needs to sense those internal pain points, flag when a department is burning out, or spot when toxic leadership is driving away your best talent. Then it transmits those strategic signals right to the brain of the company.
This leads us directly to Section 4, the Transformation Roadmap and the 5-day Consultation Module.
The proposed intervention to fix all of this is an intensive, highly strategic 5-day journey. It's an industry academia consultation module built to execute the exact paradigm shift we just talked about. The progression is super logical. You uncover deep-seated toxic realities on day 1 and analyze talent and performance on day 2. Then you tackle the really tough cultural behaviors on day 3, manage the inevitable workforce resistance on day 4, and finally, institutionalize the whole process with hard data on day 5. Let's break that down a bit more.
Days 1 and 2 are fiercely focused on establishing HR as a strategic diagnostic function and building high-performance human capital systems. Day 1 goes deep into workforce climate and sentiment diagnostics. It's all about mapping out the real, unfiltered health of the organization. Then, Day 2 pivots to actionable architecture. We're talking competency-based recruitment, meaning you actually hire based on measurable skills instead of nepotism or pure guesswork. It means building clear KPI architecture so employees know exactly how their success is being measured. And crucially, mapping out succession planning. Why is that so important? Well, right now in a lot of these large, family-owned conglomerates, if a charismatic founder gets sick, the whole factory paralyzes. Building these pipelines ensures the company survives beyond its current leadership.
Day 3 draws a stark, unforgiving contrast between the toxic, fear-driven environments currently dragging these companies down and the psychologically safe learning cultures they desperately need for the future. The goal here is a massive pivot away from authoritarian, high-power distance leadership. You know the places where employees are terrified to speak up and critical feedback is completely suppressed. Instead, the focus shifts to engineering environments of true psychological safety, building ethical HR systems and demanding actual emotional intelligence from leadership, because when employees feel safe enough to admit mistakes without the immediate fear of being fired, the entire organization learns and adapts exponentially faster. On Day 4, we hit the big roadblock, managing resistance. This tackles the exact reason why corporate transformations so often fail. Employees resist change and communication collapses. This day is incredibly pragmatic because you simply cannot mandate a massive cultural overhaul from the boardroom and expect everyone to magically fall in line. Day 4 maps out the psychology of resistance and addresses workforce anxiety head-on. Most importantly, it tackles hidden sabotage. And I don't mean someone taking a wrench to an assembly line machine. Hidden sabotage is way quieter and far more dangerous. It's quiet quitting, it's malicious compliance, it's intentionally withholding critical info from a new manager. Overcoming that requires really strategic behavioral HR interventions to guide the workforce through the friction. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, making change stick. It's all about the deliverables and the ultimate impact. Because most legacy firms run on the sheer force of dynamic personalities rather than actual structured systems, Day 5 ensures the transformation outlasts any single leader. It's completely focused on institutionalization. We're talking hard metrics, predictive analytics, and strict governance. Moving away from gut-feeling decisions is an absolute must. By building hard HR analytics dashboards that track turnover, productivity, and engagement, you essentially lock in that cultural change. Once you have concrete data staring you in the face, you can't hide behind a charismatic but toxic manager whose department has a 50% attrition rate anymore. The data forces absolute accountability.
The tangible industrial impact of this whole module is absolutely immense, and it brings us right back full circle. This isn't just nice-sounding academic theory. This translates directly to the literal survival of these sprawling industrial hubs. When you implement this roadmap, the outcomes are incredibly clear. Toxic behavior drops significantly, massive employee turnover is curtailed, and genuine workforce engagement rises. This naturally translates into exactly what every single factory in the Golden Triangle desperately needs right now to stay afloat: dramatically increased productivity, far stronger industrial relations, and a deeply sustainable organizational capability.
Ultimately, this proposal concludes with a huge realization. Survival in the coming decade isn't about being the biggest. It's about being the most adaptable and learning-oriented. In our modern era, legacy, historical market dominance, and huge capital reserves just aren't enough to protect a massive company from extinction. If you can't ethically adapt your systems and institutionalize your top talent, the sheer physical size of your factory operation simply isn't going to save you from disruption. Adaptability is literally your only remaining armor.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Take a hard, unflinching look at your own systems and your own workplace culture. Can your organization learn fast enough to survive?